organisations, not just telcos, but financial organisations, government-based bodies as well. In terms of Gartner, so what are Gartner saying about this whole space? What should organisations do? Really, they're on about monitoring privileged users, end users, developers, and IT operations as well. So back to the privileged users, organisations need to have an understanding of the who, what, when, where, how of data access. So what exactly is happening at the database level, at the data level? Who's making schema modifications? If you jump down to IT operations, one of the biggest problems is change control. So when we actually authorise a change control or a change request, how do we know that the DBAs are only doing what we've asked them to do in terms of the change? Are they doing anything else? Are they taking data? Are they changing or modifying data? So we need to be able to get answers to that. The end users, a lot of our customers are very interested in looking at baselining activity against data. So typically on a day-to-day basis, what do the actual end users access? And if they start accessing more and more data or different types of data, why are they doing that? Is that in their job description? Is that part of their job role? So can we monitor and alert on that? And also on the development side, a lot of organisations we've dealt with take live data and make it into test data. And guess what? There tends to not be any controls around that data. So a lot of organisations are now concerned about the test environments as well, and having the ability to monitor those test-based environments to actually see what's going on. Oracle, they released a survey quite recently too. And basically what they're saying, 3 out of 4 organisations can't prevent privileged users from reading or tampering with data. And 2 out of 3 can't detect or prove that a privileged database user isn't abusing their privileges. So access rights, access control is one side of the equation. But once they're actually in the systems, what are they doing? What are they doing to that actual data? And can you track that? So the good news is the Guardian solution has been designed to actually help solve some of those issues. And, a lot of people say, well, what is Guardian? Well, it's a real-time database activity monitoring solution. I use the words very carefully. Real-time, meaning that it's not based on audit logs. It's quite key. We've got the ability to monitor access to the database regardless of where it's from. We've also got the ability to real-time alert on violations against policies which you configure. And we've got the ability to real-time prevent data access from a DBA or indeed an end-user perspective as well. So it's quite a comprehensive suite. Why are people buying or looking at these solutions? 3 core reasons. Number 1 is to prevent the data leakage or breach. 2 to 3 years ago, most organisations were worried about external threat. People getting in from outside, SQL, injection attack. Still there, but the number 1 priority today is insider breach. It's that privileged user, it's that DBA. And indeed, it's a very thin line. When we used to talk to DBAs 2 to 3 years ago, they were concerned. Why should we be monitored? Why are you looking at us? And now the actual response is, we're glad we're being monitored. We can actually prove if something happens, categorically, it wasn't us that did it. So there's been a shift in the way that organisations are thinking about this technology as well. Assured data governance. I'll raise your hands here. Who's been dealing with PCI or SOX-based compliance? Yeah, a fair proportion of you. A lot of organisations have come to us saying, look, we have a failed audit. It's a SOX or a PCI-based audit around the data, around the controls of the data. How can Guardian help us? I will actually show you a couple of slides of how we dovetail into specifically PCI for this particular presentation. So, business value assessment. A lot of organisations don't really know where to start when bringing in technology like this. So, what IBM has done is really generate, if you like, a program that can help you put together a business justification or a business case. It's a free service. Yep, I'm going to say that again. It's a free service that we can actually come and help you guys set up the business case, and put together, if you like, some core things, core reasons and differentiators for going for this type of solution or this type of a project. We obviously have a lot of experience. We've done about 15, 20 VBAs in the EMEA region alone, and we can bring that sort of wealth and knowledge to your help as well. So if anybody's interested in doing that, please do come to me or StarLink and actually ask for that type of service as well, or ask for more information on it. And last but not least, is there anybody here running System Z mainframes? Yeah? So there's a couple again. So, you know, this is a big, big area for IBM, and over the last sort of 12 months, been big integration points from Guardian and IBM on IMS, DB2ZOS, and also VSAM. Anybody running SharePoint? Yeah, again, it's all National Bank of Kuwait. Seem to have everything in there. So again, a lot of customers said to us, well, we'd like to understand who's accessing documents or sensitive documents. So we've got the same type of technology now that spills over from structured environments to unstructured environments. So sensitive information in file shares, sensitive information in SharePoint. And also, we've actually beefed up, if you like, the compliance workflow component. Because what we were finding was that on a particular report that we generate, there might be multiple people that need to sign off on those reports. So before we had a one sign-off, now we've got multiple sign-off capabilities digitally on the report as well. So it just makes it a lot easier for organisations to actually use that type of technology. So that said, hopefully it's given you a little bit more information into Guardian. Please do come and see me, or indeed StarLink after the session if you have any more questions. Thank you very much.
You know, the next slide, actually, we're trying to mix between the solution technology and real customer practice. So the next will be basically a case study of National Bank of Kuwait, which has been, you know, deploying Guardian, and actually they are the first customer who deployed Guardian since, I think, 2007. Since then, you know, they go the deployment to cover so many areas. So we thought that would be a good, you know, to share their experience with you guys when it comes to database security and how they benefit from this solution and their environment. And please welcome Tamer Jamal from MBK, the CISO.
Tamer Jamal, Chief Information Security Officer, National Bank of Kuwait. In this role, he is responsible for ensuring the security of information systems and services, as well as the integrity and confidentiality of customer and employee information. Tamer also manages the corporate security function for the group. Before joining NBK, Tamer was head of security services for KPMG. He joined the Middle East practice from London to help define and establish one of the first security practices in the Middle East. Tamer also sits on the advisory board of several companies, operating in the IT governance and compliance sectors.
Thanks a lot. Visual, embarrassing video to start with. So I'm going to sort of address everyone here in two different roles. One is my current job, and two as a colleague within the information security field. So how many CISOs or heads of security do we have here? Is everyone here actually, like myself, a head of them? So I'm assuming the rest of you are IT heads, yeah? Managing IT, risk, departments like that. Picked this up this morning. I don't know if anyone's seen it. It's the hackernews.com. So typically it's got what's been going on this year. Being pretty much 2011 has been labelled the year of the hack. I think that's based on all the incidents that happened. You know, RSA, Komodo, Sony. You've got all sorts of stuff here. The FBI, former British Prime Minister, NATO. You know, quite a few things have happened this year. And I think one of the things I've realised is that you can't always prevent anything. And I think one of the key things is how companies respond to incidents. And I think what we need to do is understand, should that happen to us, how's the response going to look? A couple of major ones here, just to give us an idea of the magnitude of types of threats. An ATM threat happened. They hit 130 ATMs worldwide and stole $9 million. Okay, that happened overnight. And inside the threat there, someone was leaking customer data, stole $1 million. What are they actually after? This is what they're typically trying to steal. Data. It's just more or less a shopping list with the prices of what data is worth on the marketplace. I've highlighted credit cards, typically $2 to $6. So stealing, half a dozen credit cards isn't going to make you a millionaire. But if you can steal hundreds of thousands of those records, you can start to get a bit of money. But if you look at the other areas, for example, phone numbers, credit history, education, actually worth a lot more money. Well, typically you could use those for identity theft. We'll look at another slide in a second. I understand what people are doing in terms of the fraud with other pieces of data. Went on the internet, had a little look at the top 9 threats within the banking sector worldwide, and this is what came up. So, from my perspective, mobile banking has got to be there in the top list because we're pushing out mobile banking applications now to customers. So it's to me, I still think of a mobile phone. Now they're smartphones, they're PCs. It's like an unprotected PC in your pocket. If you're at home and you're using a PC and you don't have any security software on it, you wouldn't feel comfortable using it, right? Imagine having a PC on a phone in your pocket. What security software do you have running on that? And I think people need to start to understand what a phone can actually do. Social networks and Web 2, Facebook, got to be on that list. What are you disclosing? People's privacy now has changed. Prior to Facebook, nobody really knew anything about me. Now, if you go on Facebook and you put my name, you'll see a few pictures, you might have some information. Facebook itself was compromised, personal information was compromised. From a banking perspective, we need to think, if we're asking people security questions, we don't want to be asking them, where did you graduate from? If their Facebook profile has clearly written, I graduated, or I'm a member of this alumni from this university. Malware, botnets and denial of service. Does anyone know about the Zeus Trojan? Who's heard of the Zeus Trojan? Developed in 2007, primarily to steal information from the Department of Transport in the US. A very powerful piece of code. I think in 2009, source code for that became freely available. People started modifying it, creating their own Trojans. SpyEye, quite a recent one. If you're a bank in the Middle East, okay, and you are concerned about phishing, you've now got another concern, and it's going to be malware and spyware. That's again targeting customers. Okay, most of these things are targeting the customer and not the institute. Phishing, it's been around for a while. 5, check fraud, doesn't really happen in this region, so you don't see this sort of type of service for automatic check clearing and stuff hasn't really happened. Cloud computing, quite new, we have the iCloud. Again, no one's really comfortable yet from a security perspective to store information somewhere where they've got no control. Virtualization, the security people are now feeling a little bit comfortable with that. Okay, there's a cost benefit, they're telling us that they can get more out of this hardware. But from the cloud computing, from a bank, why would I want to store my data up in the cloud? I can't control it. What happens if that provider's hacked? The inside attacks, we'll talk a little bit about what we use to monitor for that type of stuff. First party fraud, okay? First party fraud would be linked to that. Remember that shopping list of identity bits of information? If I steal your copy of your birth certificate, copy of your graduation paper, your driving license, I can then go to a bank and pretend to be you. Take out a loan, apply for a mortgage, if the bank's doing it. So that's what first party fraud is. So that's, again, something which we see happening. Skimming, okay? Where from a skimming perspective, people released EMV processors out now, okay? So the chip-based cards are out, which have now been compromised. So they're now able to tamper with the point of sales machines for skimming. Typically, with countries like the States, who are not EMV compliant, even if we're an EMV-based region here, if you're allowing transactions to come from, say, the United States over MagStripe, you're still going to be susceptible. So they'll skim your card here and then go and use it in the country, which is allowing that to, those types of transactions to happen. So again, just a quick summary of where we are. I think those are pretty much what we would be looking at for 2011, 2012 in terms of sort of upcoming threats. These items came from a list that I put together about 4 or 5 years ago, and I think the same list applies now in terms of common mistakes within security. The first, not actually addressing the real issues in terms of basically burying your head in the sand and not dealing with them. Some of them come from leadership, management and the department. For example, earlier on a presenter was talking about IT security and the CIO. For me personally, I find that the CIO, he can't be managing the security posture for an institute. It's counter, it's a conflict of interest and slightly counterproductive. I'll give you a very good example. If you look at what happened to Sony, as a result of Sony's breach, what did they do? They hired a CISO. Okay? And when they first announced the reporting line of that CISO, he was reporting to the group CIO. Within a few weeks, I think when they actually realised what they were doing, they changed that. And similar to a risk department or an audit department, the CISO is now reporting into an executive office. They want this, the guy who's responsible for the confidentiality and privacy of all millions of customers' data is going to report from outside of IT. Okay? Many institutes already have moved the IT security or the information security function together with the risk function, and it forms part of a risk management structure, or it's actually independent, similar to a legal department or an audit department. That ties in with really number two. If you're reactive, if you're always firefighting, from a security perspective, there has to be something there to question about the leadership. The sponsorship of the function should be there, and financial sponsorship should be there. Because basically most of this stuff actually does cost money. So whether you're not going to solve all your problems purely with technology, you're not going to solve all your problems with people, but you need people, you need to pay them, so you need a budget for that. You need to purchase technology. So ultimately, it all boils down to how strong you are around the business table. Now, one of the good things I would say from an MBK perspective is that probably in the last year, we're now able to sit around the same board table as the CEO and the heads of the business divisions, okay? And that's a huge thing. And I would turn around and say, for any security leader here who wants to get that, you know, they won't give it to you. You've got to go and earn that position at the table. You've got to slowly pitch security and the importance and make the business case in order to get that seat around the table. Is everyone aware that malware can enter the PC through the antivirus software? Are you aware of that? Is everyone aware of that? Most security software, like your antivirus software, will not prevent malware from getting in your PC. So if you can't prevent it from getting in, you will need to detect it from coming out. So one of the things we did as a test was we bought an appliance. I won't tell you where it is because I'm not going to sell appliances, but we bought an appliance which detects the outbound. So what happens is it comes in the stages. Let's look at RSA, for example. The member of staff, he received an email with a spreadsheet attached to it. Within the spreadsheet was a piece of malware. Now, what happened was, and if you think about this, there's lots of extra things that you should do. He opened the spreadsheet. The malware opened an SSL connection out to the internet because you're allowing that as a regular user, people can serve. Opened an SSL connection, which immediately prevented your usual IDSs and stuff from looking at the traffic because it's encrypted, and it downloaded your Trojan code. So when I read that article, I thought, you know what? Why should we allow everyone to open SSL connections without that? Yeah, banking websites maybe, but we shouldn't allow everyone to be able to open an SSL connection out there. So we thought we'll restrict that. So there are appliances now which you can place in your network which will monitor your outbound connections. You'll be surprised when you plug them in what you can see, because many of the PCs will be infected with a malware type of virus which hasn't propagated to anything harmful yet, but it's trying to find its way out the network. If it gets out of the network, it now has to then download the code. So you need to have a look, and that's typically where people are getting caught out now. Your antivirus or your endpoint protection isn't as effective as it used to be. Point I noticed with this region is that most of the merchants are falling into what I would say is category 3. They just have to do a self-audit because the volume of their transactions is low. But take the 5 or 6 merchants which are falling into the over 4 million transactions. It's a challenge. Some of them won't take the responsibility on themselves. Some of them will try and get you to pay for it for them, and you have to manage that yourself. We're fortunate with our ones that they've got quite good IT security people in them, so they're supporting it. Most of them comply very quickly by not storing anything. Yeah? So for example, one of them, say a supermarket, used to store the card number and some track data and stuff. They just dropped everything. So by not storing anything, they immediately had no issues. So most of them will take that path of not storing it. But it is a challenge. In the beginning, people didn't want to pay for it. But people didn't want to have any expense on their overhead, on their bottom line, that they didn't really see any value over it. And I think, in terms of regulation, this is where the central bank, I think, will come in, or some of the government institutes can come in and help enforce that. Because when they step in and say, you know what, you are responsible for it, independently to the bank itself, then I think you'll see people will take that on board more. Good question.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, the next one actually is the last one. Basically, we are very close to the end of our event today, so we're going to talk about the IT governance basically, and after that we will have the customer awards, and then we'll go for the lunch. So we have Hazi from the GRC, and risk analysis from IBM, and he can talk take you through the IT governance topic.
Hasib Olsen, Business Development Manager for GRC and Risk Analytics at IBM Middle East. At IBM, Hasib helps organizations with ever-growing governance, risk, and compliance challenges. Hasib has worked with the GRC space for more than 10 years and started his career as a risk manager at Danske Bank, an enterprise operational risk framework for the entire group. Following this, Hasib moved to the software industry for GRC solutions, where he was leading the pre-sales activities for the GRC solutions at SAS Institute in the Nordics. In 2007, Hasib accepted the challenges from Saxo Bank, a global investment bank, to build a group operational risk management framework. In 2009, Hasib returned to the software industry as a solution architect for GRC solutions at SAS Institute, covering EMEA. January 2010, Hasib relocated to the Middle East, and September 1st, 2011, he joined IDM Middle East.
Thank you. That was like a short movie. According to the program, I have 3 minutes. So I have around 18 slides, so I will try to speed it up. No, I've been asked to, if I can cut a little bit of the content, but I will do my best. Otherwise, feel free to ask me after the presentation or the lunch or contact me. So, during the presentations, I've heard the word GRC several times in different contexts. So, I will try to give you an idea of what GRC is actually about, from my point of view. I don't have an IT background. I can work with my personal computer. I don't know anything about the detailed stuff. Of course, I know more than my mom and my dad. I have a risk background. So I have been in the same position as many of you are, dealing with these in real situations. I will also come with some examples of what kind of risks we were facing. So, 2 of them that you see, the threats, or that can impact the business performance, we already have talked about many times. So I will just focus on the one about access control. So we all know that in 2007, 2008, we had not only a start of a financial crisis, but we also have one of the biggest losses ever in the banking sector in France, Société Générale, where a work trader used his knowledge about the internal control system, used his access rights to conduct fraud of around 6 to 7 billion euros. How could he do it? He could do it because he used to work in middle office and back office before he came to front office. When he moved, his old access rights was not taken away from him. Because he used to work in the departments that controlled the front office, he also knew exactly how the controls work and how he could actually walk around these controls. So can you prevent it? Not 100%, but you can definitely do it better than Société Générale did at that time. And we recently saw a similar case in Switzerland, in UBS. Also a big loss. So companies are struggling to implement IT GSC programs. In general, they are struggling to implement GSC programs, but specifically in IT GSC is the IT risk management part. How to identify and prioritize the risk. Because we can't manage every risk, not at the same level. How can we do risk-based resource allocation? How do we manage all the different regulatory compliance we need to deal with? There are hundreds of regulations. I think we saw a slide earlier about what type of regulations we can expect in the coming years. And it's not going to be less than we see today. Every time I hear regulators talk, they talk about new regulation, new regulation, new regulation. And what we are going to